Well, hey, what's up, guys? We are back with another episode of the podcast At The Way, and this time we have a few guests on joining us, and we're going to be talking about biblical motherhood and womanhood and all those things. Elizabeth and KP, you better be listening because y'all gave me a hard time about this a couple months ago because we did a fatherhood episode and not a motherhood. So here you go if you're listening. But yeah, so we have Macy, Danielle, and Carrie, and kind of before we dive in, y'all just want to like introduce yourselves, like a little bit about your life and like, you know,
Sure.
why you're qualified to be on this podcast.
Do we? I mean, want to is tough.
Not literally
Why we're
qualified.
qualified?
Like,
No.
your moms, you know, like your family, stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm Carrie. I'll go first because none of us want to. My husband is Travis, the college pastor here, and then we have two little girls, Bridget, who's 6, she'll be 7 in November, and Cassie, who is 2 and is in charge.
It's so weird that Bridget's about to be 7.
Yeah.
It is. And she is a little artist, and she talks all the time. And Cassie talks too. We just don't know what she's saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Danielle. I am the Women's College Director here for The Way. And my husband and I have been married for 13 years. We have 3 kids. Our oldest is about to be 11. Her name is Addie. Jackson just turned 7. He's the same age as Bridget. And Mason is 3, and he is spoiled like a baby. Definitely.
Mason's spoiled?
He's so spoiled.
He knows
He's
a
ridiculously
lot about
spoiled.
tractors.
And he talks
dinosaurs.
a lot. Like Bridget.
Yes. Yes, they are 2 peas in a pod.
Yeah.
That's funny.
And then Macy.
Yeah, I'm Macy. My husband's Josh. We've been married we'll be 10 years this December. So, yeah.
Awesome.
That's exciting.
We have one little boy. His name's Aiden, and he's 4. And then we're in the process of adopting another one right now. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, we're waiting to be matched with birth mom, and then, yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah.
How long does that process
Oh, gosh,
usually take?
it's so long.
Like,
It can take a couple days.
It can, like,
Or-
Aiden was like, we were waiting for like 6 months, and then they called us, and they were like, he's born, and we went and got him, and then it was crazy. And then this one we've been waiting for like a year, so.
do y'all like go through like a specific like agency or?
Yeah,
do you
we're
just
going
kinda-
through, we went through Buckner last time, and
Okay.
then this time we're going through a different agency, so.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
Second adoption.
yeah. And I work with the women's ministry. I do mom to mom, so.
Awesome.
Which is
yeah.
fun, but I can't go
I
anymore
know, we
because
miss
of
you.
work.
Yeah, no.
Oh, bummer.
I know now I like work. It's weird.
Yeah. One of these days, like,
I like that about you.
what are you gonna do when
I
so
teach
responsible.
Mason.
when like Bridget and Cassie are both
He learns
like
things.
like in school, like full-time school? Are you gonna like work?
Well,
like, are you gonna, like,
we've had discussion about that. Whether I will go. So before we moved here and before I had Bridget, I taught in elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
So like, would I go back to doing that, or would I just keep doing what I'm doing so Travis and I can have Fridays off
That's
together
what
as
Travis
date
told me,
night
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
or date day, like every
Yeah.
day would be pretty.
Yeah, because they'd both be in school.
That'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but then money. So
Money's nice. I mean, you know.
I guess I have 3 years to decide.
Hey,
that.
so you got
Yeah.
some time.
Yeah.
Time.
Got some
Well,
time.
cool. Well, yeah. So obviously, if you're listening, like all 3 of these women are mothers and wives, and much wiser than I am, and I'm also not a woman. So we had to bring
Good
on
point.
some guests to talk about this. And so, yeah, kind of just to kind of let you guys know the flow. We're going to talk a lot about like dating and singleness, but also marriage and like what it means to be a mom and like what it's like being married and kind of the role that women play. Obviously, you can read passages in the Bible and kind of make some assumptions like on exactly how it should be. But like in the real world and in our current culture today, like we're going to talk about what it actually is to be a mom and a wife and to work and all these things that that women have to balance today. And so, because obviously we don't live in a culture anymore where just like every woman ever just stays home and like does nothing except raise the kids. There's a lot that I know all 3 of you do, even though y'all may not have full-time jobs, you all have a lot going on in your life. So we'll kind of, I want to set a basis for this conversation. And this was kind of I sent you all these questions earlier this week, and I feel like this is the one that if I had just asked you on the spot, you would have an answer, but like, honestly, if someone just asked me on the spot, like, what is biblical manhood, I'd have to like think about it
Yeah.
for a little bit, just because you can.
Big question.
You can say a couple of things, but then it's like, but what actually is like manhood? So for y'all, what is biblical womanhood? And obviously, again, we're not looking for like a massive, like 30-minute long answer because I'm sure you could give one. But
Bridget definitely could.
Yeah, she could.
What if you were across the table from one of our college girls and they asked you, "What is biblical womanhood?" What would your brief answer be? Whoever wants to go first.
Go ahead.
I'll go.
As we all look at Carrie.
I know.
All of them are really excited to be on camera. And be
I love y'all. That's why I'm here. So I would tell them, the Bible tells us that a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. And so at the baseline of what it means to be a woman, a biblical woman, it would be that you glorify God with your life. And that might look a little bit different, but, Titus says that you're kind, that you're caring. 2 Peter tells you, like, it's not about what you look like on the outside. It's about who you are on the inside, about how you treat others, about the way that you love. And so the actions that you live is your life pointing to Jesus. That's what it means to be a biblical woman.
You stole my,
Right.
no, I'm just kidding. It's totally fine. So I did put the same thing.
It's because I can read your paper.
Yeah, you can.
I can't.
She's
'cause my
cheating.
glasses-
She's
She
cheating.
totally
I don't have my
can't see
glasses
that.
on. I can't see that.
Kind of saying like Proverbs 31, obviously it's like,
Never heard.
Especially
every
the
woman
sewing the clothes. That's what I
Yeah,
do.
I
sew them straight
for
from
sure.
Walmart.
No, none of that. But just like you were saying, like a woman who fears the Lord. But then also, one thing this past couple of years that I've really been studying more is how much it talks about in the Bible. It talks about seeking Him first in anything you do. Seek Him first before your marriage. Seek Him first before your children. Seek Him first. And if you get that priority in line, then you're going to be a biblical woman because you're going to be seeking Christ first, and everything will just fall into line.
And that applies. If you happen to be a guy listening to this episode, maybe you're trying to figure out what you should be looking for, like in a future wife. That applies to guys as well. Like seek the Lord first.
For sure.
And if you seek the Lord, there's a pretty strong reason to think that you might become more like Him.
Yeah.
It's true. Going last was unwise
Sorry.
because I had both of those things written. But
All right, you can go
I
first
would-
next time.
Well, unwise choice again. What I would probably say if I was sitting across from a college girl, though, to kind of like relate that to real life is to be set apart, and then what set apart means. Like when we're looking at the world and how they're doing dating, and it's like, how do I look, and what am I wearing, and am I, can I show this person off, and are they making money, and those kinds of things that kind of the world holds really high. And I would say that, being a biblical woman, like what women are trying to do to get men and to be successful would not be like what the Bible is saying to do. So, like, are you pointing others to Christ, and is that with your mouth and with your actions, and with the way that you love others and the way that you do things? Because all of those things are part of being a biblical woman. And so, when you kind of look at yourself, are you doing what the world is doing? And if you're doing not everything the world is doing is bad, but most of it is not glorifying God. So, what are in our actions and our words and the way that we're talking and the way that we're looking and what we're posting on social media? Because, most people, especially younger, like their platform is social media. So like what you're putting out there on your social media, like is all of that glorifying God, or is it showing what the world is wanting?
Yeah, and definitely. And I think, obviously I agree with all those things. And I feel like it's important to know, like, before we get into all these things, like, that's kind of the basis in which I know all of you are going to answer all these questions as y'all talk about it. And really, like, for anything in life, like, you should kind of, like, women and men should base how they're doing things on, like, is this, like, glorifying God? How am I following Jesus within this? And so wanted to kind of set that basis before we talk about, like, specific questions. Not that we couldn't just spend a whole podcast talking about womanhood, but that's kind of what we're about to do, just through various questions. So obviously most of the girls listening to this are probably in college, and they're probably dating or single and, like, thinking about dating. Or maybe not. Maybe they're not thinking
Maybe
about
they're
dating at all.
weirdos like me, and maybe they're married.
Could be.
true.
Well, I think in our
possible.
ministry we have, like, as far as actual college students that are married, we only have, like, Justin and Allison Bloss.
Hey, shout out.
Yeah. Shout out to the Blosses. But yeah,
Good luck tonight, Allison.
other than that, like, I don't think there's any other married girls in our college ministry.
I don't think so.
I mean, you have, like,
on top of my.
In our young adults ministry of, like, my wife and then, like, Megan and stuff. But
Yeah.
it's really So
Yeah.
all the girls listening to this are single or dating or maybe engaged or thinking about getting engaged. I know that for sure, that we have some girls in our ministry are close to getting engaged. And you know who you are if you're listening. But so we're going to talk about dating and singleness before we kind of get to where we actually talk about motherhood and being a wife, because a lot of these students are just trying to figure out that first phase first. So first phase first. But yeah, so prior to being married, which I know for all three of you, it's been a little while since you like dated, you know,
Yep.
obviously, because you've all been married
A
for
decade.
Yeah.
coming up on 10, you said 13, and then y'all are
10,
10,
10 and a half, yeah.
So,
2010. Yeah.
so 10 plus years ago, when y'all were not,
Aging us.
You're aging us for sure.
that's
We all
okay.
got married when we were young children.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
No, really.
I mean, y'all did get married relatively young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know. So if you're thinking about getting married young, here's 3 examples of
There
it.
you go. You can do it.
But yeah, so prior to being married, what are some of the things that were extremely important to y'all when you were looking for a future husband? Like when you were dating, like what were some things that like had to be a fact about the guy that you were looking for or actually dating and then eventually got married to?
I'm gonna go first this time since we took
Yeah.
So
Put
this
you on
is
the
And
spot.
try to think like specific to you, because like I know like any Christian woman, it's like, oh, I wanted him to be
Yeah.
following Jesus,
Yeah.
but like specifically for you.
Well, and I think, I mean, I'll give her a little bit of a second to think. But I was in high school.
Yeah.
But when Travis and I started dating, I was a freshman. So like any guy that I dated before him was not really a real boyfriend. Sorry if you're listening and you're one of those guys. You don't count. But I think,
probably not listening.
yeah, they don't, I don't even know where they are. So, but like, I always wanted somebody who could make me laugh. Obviously, I wanted someone who followed Jesus, but like, I think life is so sad and so serious so often that you just need somebody to like kind of be able to make you laugh too and just enjoy life. Someone you enjoy.
now,
Yeah, someone you like
2020.
actually enjoy being around, because
Yeah.
there's not that many people that you really enjoy being around all the time,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, oh, I enjoy them for 2 hours, but like then I'm ready for them to
done.
go home, you know? So like I thought that was really important.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about Danielle.
Yeah.
Even less than 2 hours, like an hour.
Oh, I thought you. I love Danielle, so.
JK.
Dang. It was really important to me how he treated others, because I like being around people, and I like caring for other people, so that like mattered a lot to me. Like, how was he treating other people? And I didn't need him to be just like me, but like, was he gonna let me be me? Like, was he gonna let me like be the person that I was with, you know, my good qualities and my bad qualities, and like put up with me and walk me through it? Because like previously to my husband, I really honestly didn't do well in the dating department, didn't make good choices. So when I got a little bit older and I was thinking, okay, like, oh, maybe marriage is a real thing I should think about, I wanted to make sure that, you know, he was going to actually love me for me and not who I thought I needed to be, or who I wasn't, or, you know, who they wanted me to be. So how he treated others and letting me be me was real important to me.
Like, I feel like if you're a girl or a guy and you're dating someone and you just feel like they're trying to change like everything
out.
about you,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, you don't want that in your
Yeah.
life. Really, from anybody, from friends.
Or if you're trying to change them.
them.
That
Yeah,
doesn't work
well,
out.
yeah.
Also not
From,
good.
If you're the
especially
person
from the
who's
girl
trying to
side, I
change
feel
it.
like sometimes
Yeah.
we're like, well, I like 90% of him,
Yeah.
but like 10% I could change. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
don't do
It's like
that.
you can't change that. 10%.
Yeah.
Like you need to learn.
You're
to,
not Belle, and he's not the Beast. It doesn't work.
Exactly.
Disney.
A couple things that, I mean, for sure, like my parents had to like him, and that was huge to me. And I mean, I had brought other guys home, and my parents were like, and so it just, and I didn't want to admit
It's
it
true
at
though,
the
your
time.
parents know.
Yeah, and I
They
didn't want to
care.
admit it at the time, but like it really mattered to me a lot what my parents thought. And Josh was really one of the only guys I brought home that they were like, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
How was your dad?
My
like,
dad?
when he if he
Macy's
didn't
dad
like
is
a
the
guy,
pastor
yeah,
here.
Macy's
Yeah.
dad is Pastor
Yeah.
Steve. He's
The
a senior
head
pastor
pastor.
here.
Yeah.
Oh, the head
The
pastor.
head pastor.
The head pastor, which it's a weird term, head
Yeah.
pastor. The lead
Senior-
pastor.
The
I like
lead
that
Senior
better.
pastor.
Senior sounds
Senior
old,
pastor.
though.
What?
Yeah, he
Steve's
is
not
old.
young.
He is old. I did not call
He's
him
not the
old. For
oldest
record,
person on
I did
staff,
not call
though.
you old, Pastor Steve.
He calls himself old. I
Yeah.
feel like every time I see him, but like, how is I don't know why this like matters to me, but like when you brought someone home and
'Cause
like
this will be
Steve
you later in
didn't
life.
approve of him, like what did he do? Like he just let you know, or what? Did
No,
he let
like
the guy
he was
know?
no,
Like,
he was always really nice.
like
I
laid
mean,
back, yeah.
yeah, and then he would never be like ugly or anything, obviously.
Sure.
But I mean, after they left, he definitely let me know. He would be like, "Babe, I don't know about that." And I'm like,
My sister
"Okay."
brought a guy home one time that was wearing a Hooters shirt.
Oh
Nice.
no.
My dad was so nice to him, and it was
Good
like, yeah,
move.
you
Yeah,
know, talk.
yeah.
And then when he left, my dad was like, hey, I don't ever want to see him again.
Yeah, that's basically. I mean, basically.
He was like,
bold
I'm glad
move.
that you are his
Yeah.
friend. That's
Yeah.
all you will ever be.
My dad is always. I mean, like I'm the only girl. I was his princess, and he was like, "You deserve." He always made me feel like I deserve the
Yeah.
best, and which we do. We deserve a good man that's gonna
Absolutely.
love us and
Yeah.
build us up instead of tear us down.
Yeah, I feel like because like so my wife's pregnant with our first, so like I feel like
So
if
she
we
could be
had-
here next year.
Yeah,
She could, yeah. Maybe next year
You'll
we'll
have a little
like
crying
yeah.
baby.
Yikes. But I feel like if I had a daughter and like someone came to my door, like wearing a Hooters shirt, I think I would like open the door and be like, change shirts and come back. Like I think
Yeah.
I would just close like where that's a
Tucker
bold
might
move.
do that. He would definitely make a comment. He wouldn't
Oh,
like be
yeah.
mean,
for sure.
but he would definitely be like,
Oh,
I think-
Travis would
So,
definitely
tell me
make
about
a
your
comment.
shirt.
I think
But
I'd
my
make them
dad
feel
is-
really awkward.
My
Yes,
my
Tucker would
dad is
definitely
not
do that.
like that. My dad's very like just kind and reserved. But if he says no, like
my
if he
dad's
draws
like
a
that.
line, the line is
Yeah.
drawn. And so he was so nice to him, and then he left, and he was like, "I'm glad that you're his friend. You are not dating him. I never want to see him again."
Yep, that's pretty
I
much.
would
And
just
Laura
ask
was like,
him,
"Yes, sir."
I'd be like, so what do you like Hooters for?
What do you
The
go to
food's not that good, so.
yeah,
What is
Tucker would do
what is
that. He would
Hooters?
like,
What
he
is
would
it
like
known for?
'Cause
be
the food
nice to
isn't
him,
great.
but
I've never
he
heard
would
of
point
it.
it out. He'd be like, so that
Like if
I've
you
never heard
like
of that
Did you get that
place.
while you
Where'd
were
you get
there?
it? What is that place? What are they known for? I've never heard of
There's
it.
better options for wings out there.
Oh,
And
man.
anyways, bold move wearing a Hooters shirt. showing up
Sorry.
to
Yeah.
meet the parents.
Especially a preacher.
Whoever you are,
Yeah, that's okay. Maybe they've changed or probably
I literally
haven't, but
don't know.
yeah.
Nothing. Never saw him again. She listened. So
nice.
So one thing that none of y'all mentioned actually, which is not surprising, but none of y'all mentioned anything about like physical attraction when you start dating someone. So I want to ask, like, how important are different kinds of attraction when dating? So like you have physical attraction, you have personality that you can be attracted to, and of course spiritual attraction. So like when you're looking to date or you are dating, like how much of a role should those play in dating, and does it change like as you date someone for longer? So like physical attraction, personality, what was like most important to you early on, and then how did that change over time, or did it?
I struggled with this question. I really did. I mean, I was so young. I was 19 when I met my husband, and of course, like, he was hot. Like, I mean, that was the first thing that attracted me to him. Like,
right.
he was.
Well, if you don't
he-
think that they're
yeah.
cute, it's probably not going to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, I mean, you at first, for sure. I think physical is important. Like, you don't. I mean, that's just weird. But if you weren't, I guess some people.
But in some ways too, I can say from the other side, like, so before Travis, I really liked nerds and like, just that's not. I like muscles and.
She's not lying. I've seen her exes.
Yeah,
That's
it's
hilarious.
a fun thing we do is make fun of Carrie's exes. Sorry, but that's that's not. He wasn't my typical type, but we were friends, and then like as I got to know who he was, the physical attraction
Yeah,
grew,
for sure.
and then we started dating after I did think
I think
he
it
was the
was
hottest guy in the
Travis's
world.
hair.
So.
It was his-
Yeah, it was those
His
highlights, man.
hair.
It was great.
Oh
oh
man.
no, he had highlights.
Oh,
Yeah, and a
yeah.
popped
pop
collar.
He had, like, his
No.
whole
If
head.
you like Google
Oh, my
like
Lord.
2004
No.
bad guy trends, that was
Oh
Travis.
no.
Travis.
Yeah, he did like all of them.
Oh god.
Like his hair was like the same length all over, and it was all just
no,
spiked out.
No.
He had
Oh,
the
gosh.
highlights, like
Just
that's
on the
thing.
tips.
Cute.
That's it. Yeah,
Frosted
that was
tips.
the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Frosted tips.
And he
was
would
a
like
huge
put
thing.
the collar over his jacket.
He popped it.
And
I've
up.
seen it. There's a picture.
There-
There's like lime green or something.
Yeah.
Bright bold color.
Gosh.
great.
Now he wears a lot of gray. He's like, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of mute it.
Yeah, so physical attraction. We'll just kind of like so like obviously
It can grow.
It can.
Yeah, I think that
for
I
sure.
think that changes. So
Yeah.
I think that
we don't look the same forever, right?
it
No, I mean, have
matters
you
that
ever
you're-
seen an 80-year-old and been like, man, that person's hot?
I mean, there are some like
We-
there's those like outliers, like, and they probably also have had like surgeries to keep their face
Yes.
looking how it does. But there's outliers. Obviously, there are people that there could
Not
be a
an 80.
70-year-old man.
Well.
It's like, man, that guy is still good looking, dude.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of an example. Like I don't want to be like stereotypical, but like Brad Pitt. I think he's like in his 50s.
Yeah, I think he's the
Yeah.
same age as my dad.
He might be
Yeah.
60. And he's
he's-
still obviously a
yeah.
very good looking guy. But
But he's still not as cute as he used to be.
right, exactly.
Just saying. We
Everybody
all
changes. Father time is undefeated. So like
Yeah.
we know or mother time to be progressive. So we know physical attraction changes. But up front, like, is it okay to initially like be most attracted by them physically, and then obviously you want to check out the other stuff pretty
think that's
quickly.
Like
Normal.
initially, yeah.
I think
normal.
I mean, your first, like, especially if you don't know them,
Yeah.
like, your first thing that you're going to see is the
Who they
are,
physical.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's completely okay and normal. And you do want to be physically attracted to them
Yeah.
because, if you
That's an important-
biblically, like, later in life after you get married, like,
That's an important part of a
physicalness
marriage,
is a
yeah.
part
It
of a
is,
marriage.
yeah.
So, like, you do want to have
Yeah.
a physical
If you
attraction
think they're
to them,
ugly,
but
it's not gonna work.
you don't want to put the weight of your
Yeah.
relationship on physical attraction for a number of reasons, and one of those being that our looks change. So,
does,
like,
yeah.
my husband and I have actually known each other since the 8th grade. I don't look anything like I did when I was in the 8th grade, and this is actually something that I struggled with. Way into our marriage, we started dating at 19, and I probably looked my very best in life, like, at 19, 20, 21. I cheered for like a year in college,
What
so I
is
worked.
that? Like girls get like when they're 30, that's like there's when they start to go down. I feel like that's when men go up. What is the deal with that?
I don't know,
I
but
still
I
have a month
definitely,
till 30,
I
so-
don't like. I
Well,
looked really at my greatest, and I was in my most
Not really,
fit.
just-
And then I've had kids, and I'm in my late 30s, and I'm like, I struggled with that for a while. I was like, oh, what? Like, my looks aren't the same. And so if you are putting all your weight in physical attraction, like, it's going to fail you every time because. And I don't even, like, today, like, quarantine, I don't wear makeup every day. And I walked in, my husband was like, you look so beautiful today. And I was like, oh, thanks. I don't look the
Would
same.
y'all
I don't
say
get together every day.
I've heard this statement before, like actually quite a bit. I feel like that guys care more about physical attraction than girls. Would you agree with that, or do you feel like that's not necessarily true?
No.
Yeah.
I think girls do too.
Yeah.
Have y'all heard
I
that?
think guys
though?
care
I've
more.
heard that.
I think guys care more.
You think?
I don't
Yes.
know.
I do.
Maybe it
I think
depends on
guys
the
care more.
girl. I don't
I
know.
think girls care. I think guys care more.
I think-
Initially.
Yeah,
Initially.
maybe
Maybe
initially.
initially.
And I think too that girls can be in general are more attracted to like a variety
True.
of
That's true.
physical things. Like none of the guys that I liked looked the same.
Yeah.
Like there was just something about him. I was like, oh, well, I think he's kind of cute. Like he's nerdy cute and he's skater
That's
cute.
nerdy
And he's
cute.
and so you know what I mean. I think girls have more like a broader.
I
view
did
of
have
that.
like before I met Tori.
And Travis
like,
was like, I like brunettes.
yeah,
That's it.
Tori is actually the exact opposite of every girl that I ever dated before her, like in the looks department. So I don't know.
But she's the prettiest, so.
100%.
I think on that same note, like it's first physical appearance can be, but then like if they're spiritually not where they're supposed to be, then their looks can fade to me.
Yeah,
like,
they get
Or
less
if they
cute.
treat
Yeah.
people really badly, you're like,
yeah. Like
All of a sudden
it
your
changes,
ears are
it alters
weird.
it.
Yeah.
my husband is, I was very attracted to him at the beginning, but like now that I know his heart, I'm even way more
Yeah.
attracted to
Yeah.
him
For
now.
sure. Definitely.
than I
Yeah,
used
and
to be.
I feel like
it was-
every year in marriage that our
Yeah.
attraction has grown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
attraction changes too because like what's popular, like what's trendy, like what you're wearing, like
Yeah.
is
Side
it cool to
things.
be like really built and like physical, or is it like let's do the lazy look? Like so like it also
bod.
depends
Dad
on
bod.
it depends on the time as well because looks and trends change, so
Yeah.
that affects it as well.
So like, I don't know about I don't know about body type being a trend. I mean, I get what you're saying, but like,
Okay, muscles
Yeah.
over here.
I don't plan to get like large and out of shape just because like that's what seems to be popular later on in life. But I don't know.
Well, yes,
That's
but-
usually the trend is people like, you know what, fat and lazy. That's
Yeah. No.
It's definitely
the look though.
Yeah. But no, so I think basically we, like all of you agree, physical attraction is important. If you're a girl who's dating a guy, like I hope that you're attracted to him, and guys, I hope that you're attracted to the girl that you're dating. But
It's
Yeah.
I
not.
would
It's
say
definitely the least
Definitely.
important of the three.
it fades, and also like very quickly,
Yeah.
you've got to ask, like, do they check out personality wise and then spiritually? And I agree. Like if like there was like when I dated, like coming out of high school, I dated a girl who I was very attracted to. Quickly realized spiritually she didn't check out, or personality wise, but I ignored those red flags and kept dating her, which was a terrible idea. And so, if you find yourself in a relationship and you're only physically attracted to him, but nothing else checks out,
It's not enough.
Yeah.
it's probably time to break up.
Yes, for
but
sure.
yeah, so physical attraction is important, but it doesn't last. And so, but I think it is interesting though, like when you find your person, I guess, like we would all agree, you just like the attraction is elevated by like their personality and
For
their
sure.
relationship with God, and it just like grows throughout
Yeah,
life. And
for
so
sure.
even just over the last, like, I've been with Tori for 4 years, married for 2, and like it's just crazy how that changes for the
Yeah.
better if it's actually your person.
And I think even more like you'll see once you have kids, like
Oh, yeah,
seeing
for sure.
seeing Travis be a dad,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like that's
Oh, even seeing Tori, like with her, we have 2 nieces and a nephew, and just seeing
Yeah.
her around them is
Yeah.
extremely attractive.
And so you'll
I
know,
can imagine
like,
till
yeah.
when she has ours in March, what that'll be like. But yeah, so there are different kinds of attraction. Physical is important up front. Don't date someone if you think they're not attractive. I almost said ugly, but that's not very nice. So if
I said it. So.
yeah, I mean, everyone thinks, like, if you are listening, somebody thinks that you are attractive,
Yeah,
and someone will
true.
not,
And you
that's
are.
okay. Yeah.
And I think that's the
Yeah.
thing is, and I think that's why attraction can grow,
For
is
sure.
because there is something that is beautiful about every single person that God's created.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, so kind of moving on from that, what would you say are things that girls should completely avoid or be very weary of when dating with the intent for marriage? So, like, maybe some things that caused breakups for y'all, or deterred you from dating certain guys, or maybe should have deterred you. Like, I know you mentioned that maybe some of your relationships before Tucker weren't so great, but
No,
like,
most of
I
them,
learned a lot
almost
from my
all of them
sisters.
weren't great.
so what are some things that like girls should just be like avoid altogether, and then be very weary of up front if they notice it? Like, what's
So I would say if there's a lot of jealousy, unhealthy jealousy, like
And
of
control.
course there might be a little bit of like
Yeah.
nudges of jealousy. We all have those tendencies, but like what are they doing with that jealousy, and like how are they reacting to it? How are they treating you because of it? Jealousy and controlling behavior. I dated like a list of guys that was a thing, and the controlling behavior would vary, but would inevitably be like a huge thing in my relationship. So you want to be really mindful of
And
that.
I think the jealousy thing sometimes is hard to catch right at first, because it's almost flattering at
Yeah.
the beginning. Like, no, I don't want that guy looking at you, or I don't want you hanging out with those people because you're mine. And you're kind of like, oh, you
Yeah.
want to be mine. And so like at first it kind of comes across flattering, and
Yeah.
then you can easily fall into that trap. So
Yeah.
it's a trap.
When me and Josh first started dating, he's like the least jealous person I've ever met. Like, I wanted him to be more jealous. Like, I was
Yeah.
like, babe, why do you not care? Like,
Yeah,
and he
I'm
was
hanging
like,
out with
"I
10
don't know."
guys. Why
Yeah,
don't you-
he was like, I don't know, I trust you. And I was like, no, I want you to be more jealous. Like,
I trust me too.
yeah,
I don't trust them.
what's wrong with this picture? No.
But it's great
But
because it's
yeah.
what you want.
It
That's
feels,
healthy.
It feels
That's
unnatural, but it's healthy.
Yeah,
very
because at first
healthy.
it is weird that it almost feels, and I think it's kind of played up in our culture maybe
Yeah.
a little or
Yeah, I
something.
think
Well- so.
That you're kind of like, oh,
And if-
I'm his.
Mm-hmm.
No,
It's
you're not his.
Because
You're
I
God's.
love you
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah.
because I want to protect you this, and like there's these phrases that you can use that do
That make
you
it
feel
sound
really sweet. You're like,
nice
oh,
at
like,
first, and then you're
that's
like,
so
wait a second,
sweet.
I haven't
Or
hung out with my friends. I
I-
haven't done this.
I think for younger girls, things that we didn't have to battle, or I didn't. Maybe she's a lot younger than me.
I'm not a lot.
You 6 years is a lot of years.
That's a lot of years.
Thank you.
And I feel like once you're past like
Okay.
late 20s, it just doesn't matter.
Well, so when I was young, social media wasn't a thing, and that's a huge thing now. So that is a big difference in between when I was growing up.
I
Like
had MySpace,
I was
so.
way
MySpace.
into college before social media even became a thing. So that wasn't a battle that I had to face that everybody now has to face. But I would say now with social media and Snapchat and all the things, locations are shared.
Yeah.
And so it's
Yeah.
a way for people to say, oh, I know where you're at. I'm going to show up where you're at, or show me where you're at, and then questioning you a lot. And if that's something that's happening in your relationship, a lot of those jealousy questions, oh, but I'm just making sure that you're good and making sure that we're good.
Yeah.
That's a red flag.
Yeah,
For sure.
you need trust.
So I think another thing that's really important is that the man or whoever you're dating is going to respect you. Like if you have certain values set up and they're not respecting those values and they're making you feel bad because of your values, like
Or they're trying to get you to
physically,
change them.
yeah, like if you like, okay, I'm not going to have sex before I'm married, and they're making you feel guilty about that.
Or they're
that's
trying to be like, oh, well, let's see how
not
close
okay.
to the line we can
Yes,
get.
Right.
And it's
that's-
like, no, we need to have the same
They're
standard.
testing your
Yeah.
boundaries.
yes, that's
We need to
not
have the same
respecting
standard.
you at all.
For
That's
sure.
a big red flag.
Would y'all say that like a little bit of jealousy is okay?
I think it is natural. It's what you do with the jealousy.
Right.
Yes.
So like if you're having a
Does that
conversation
jealousy
about it,
cause distrust?
Yeah.
yes.
Or
Well,
does it
and
make
what
you-
If it's making you be controlling, or the distrust.
If it's
that's
jealous,
bad.
like, oh man, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
That's different than like, you can't hang out with those
Right.
people. You
well,
can't do that. I mean,
maybe there's cause for it. Like maybe so. In honesty, when Tucker and I were dating, like I had always hung around guys like my entire life. I lived next door to a guy. He had guy friends. My mom was always helping take care of them. A lot of them had single moms who were working a lot. So for me, it was very natural to just be with guys and to like touching them and talking to them, sit next to them. That I didn't deem it as flirting because I wasn't intentional. Like I wasn't trying to flirt with them. And so to me, it wasn't a big deal. But looking back now, I'm like, oh, that probably wasn't the most respectful behavior to Tucker when we started dating. And so, if he had been like, hey, like, I'm glad you're friends with him, and like we all hung out together, he was with us. But if he would have been like, it makes me jealous, I don't appreciate you doing this, then that would have been a completely fair statement that I would have then needed to respect.
Yeah.
And it would have been an okay thing for him to say. But just, it depends on what you do with it. And
what
because
it is.
sometimes it might be like a real thing, like they might have a real cause to be
Well,
jealous.
it says God is a jealous God.
Yeah.
But it's a righteous jealousy. And
Right.
if you're, that's a fine line, but
Right. Yeah, it's like I feel like a little bit of jealousy is natural, but
Yeah.
then it really does matter
And-
like,
and
what you do with it.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Like anger is okay, but what you do with that
Right.
anger matters.
Does that jealousy like
the feeling itself isn't wrong. It's the action
Yes.
that
Yes.
it might
Right.
lead to.
for sure.
like if that jealousy causes you to immediately not trust that person, like that's
Right.
probably not on them unless they've actually given you a
Yeah.
reason to
Yeah.
not trust.
Because it
them,
could
you know?
bring a really good conversation. Y'all could have a really good, communicate about it, and it could make you trust each other more and grow closer if it's
Yeah.
handled
Yeah.
correctly.
But yeah, I think y'all brought up a couple of big ones though. That is one like is the guy trying to be controlling? Because that's a huge red flag for what could be like a gateway to like verbal abuse and even physical and things like that. And then of course, also like do they respect you?
And I think it's important that I think it kind of went without saying, but that if he's not loving Jesus and
Yeah.
seeking Jesus,
Yeah.
he's not going to love you well.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And so even if he's like, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, like I'm American, of course I'm Christian. It's like, but is he actually, the way that he is living his life, is it pulling you where you want to grow closer to Jesus, or is it not? Because if it's not,
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
gonna,
if you're a girl or guy,
he can't love you as well if he doesn't love Jesus first.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just,
if you're a girl or a guy and you're like pursuing Jesus and you are super plugged into the church because you're pursuing Jesus, and then you start dating someone and prior to you dating them, they never went to church, and they didn't have a relationship
Yeah.
with God. Then all of a sudden when you start dating, they start coming to the church with you. Like that's good,
Yeah.
but you shouldn't date that
Yeah,
person.
they're not ready.
For sure.
Yeah, and so that's likely going to end up being.
doesn't mean you
a
can't
deterrent
ever
for
date
you.
him.
Yeah.
When I met Travis, he wasn't in a place where I should have started
Yeah.
dating him. Honestly, he was kind of rude, and I didn't really appreciate him. But we were friends, and then
Yeah.
as he grew in his relationship with the Lord, that's when we started to actually date. Is whenever he was in a spot where he was ready.
Yeah. So do not evangelate. We've mentioned that before at other like sermons at the way and stuff like that. But evangeldating is a terrible idea. And evangelating. That's
Even if
why
you're like, well, it worked for somebody one time once.
we're
No,
missionary dating.
It didn't
yeah.
really.
Yeah, definitely. So you want to if you are pursuing Jesus, you should want to date someone that's pursuing Jesus. And if there's like if you immediately notice that that's not happening,
Well, if
again,
not,
don't
you're,
date
I mean,
them.
the whole path of your life, like what we started with, is that you want to be glorifying God.
Yeah.
And if the other person isn't there, you're going to have conflict.
You're
Your
gonna
lives
get
are literally
frustrated with
pointed
them.
in two very different directions. And it's just going to create conflict.
Yeah.
It's just going to create pain. Even without like anything else. You're literally going in two different directions. It doesn't work.
Yeah. I'm kind of going out of order a little bit here.
Sorry.
No, I said I am.
I'm
Watch out.
Well,
That's
just
right.
it's not that out of order. But when you're in a dating phase in life, is it okay for like the girl to pursue the guy, or should the guy always pursue the girl? What I mean by that is like, should the guy always be the one to ask on the first date? Should he be the one that's really pursuing her heart? Because I think that's kind of the typical kind of standard that we set, is that the guy needs to pursue the girl. Is that always the case? Is it okay for, a little bit of Monica and Chandler, like, she proposed to him? I don't, if you are a guy and your girl proposes to you,
You better get a ring.
I have no words for you. But prior to engagement, just dating, is it okay for it to be kind of reversed? Maybe the girl is the one who's interested, and the guy's like, I don't know, it's like the girl pursues him. Is that okay?
So I'm kind of old school in this. That I think the guy should pursue the girl. I've done it backwards, and it didn't really work out for me. So I think that the guy should pursue the girl, and that the girl should let the guy lead in that. Because, I mean, as a wife, like, biblically, I also need to let my husband lead. That doesn't mean I don't get to support and help him. I have a role, but like, I let him lead. And so I think that the guy should pursue the girl, but I think that the girl can make herself available to be pursued. So, and I actually asked my husband this question last night, because I was like, what is he going to say? Because I was like, I don't know if everybody would agree with me on my opinion on that. But he actually said the exact same thing.
I will play devil's advocate.
Would you say that you agree with Danielle?
Yeah, but like at the same time, when I met my husband, we didn't know each other, but like my cousin and his best friend were like trying to get us together, and when I first met him, I texted my cousin that night, and I was like, yeah, he's real cute, but luckily, like, my husband had been texting his friend too,
okay,
and so it like mutually. But I mean, I almost pursued him in that way.
Kind of, but you didn't like go up to him and say, "Hey, I want to date you."
No, and I wouldn't do
I
that.
Think,
no,
telling your friends like, "Oh, like this guy's cute. I kind of like him," and like that, I think is okay.
Yeah.
But like asking out on the date, like making the plans, I don't.
So y'all would say in general.
I would say, I'll play devil's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it, Carrie.
Well, I would say that, I mean, my personality is not that. Like, I'm not gonna, I wouldn't have done that. Travis asked me out, he proposed, he said, I love you. And I think in general, that's the way it goes for most people. But in the Bible, it doesn't say that it has to be that way. So I would say, like, if you have a guy and, like, in a lot of ways, y'all's gender roles are reversed, I don't think it's sinful.
No,
I mean, it's not really, it's not my personality. It's not the way that I did things.
I agree.
But I wouldn't say, like, oh, well, she proposed to him, so I think that's wrong. I don't think it's wrong. It's not me. It's not
proposing
for me.
part. I'm not obviously.
I mean,
that's
I feel
tough.
like you're just setting up marriage though for the girl to be in charge.
I
Like even
agree.
though
but I don't
it's
think
like
that the man is in
that.
charge in a relationship. Like,
See,
Travis isn't in charge of me.
Yeah.
I
Well,
wouldn't
we
No,
know.
but
I can
you
tell.
have
I'm
the,
the
like the
boss. No,
head
I'm
of the
just
house.
No, he's the head.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
that
no, I
way.
know.
But-
But I'm
but-
saying, like, I don't think it's necessarily wrong.
No.
When you're married,
I wouldn't do it.
When you're married, the guy is supposed to lead and be the head, and that that can kind of lead us to a different question here in a minute. But like when you're dating,
You're not married yet.
Yeah.
I agree.
So what I would say is, like, I think it's weird, I feel like, for the girl to pursue the guy.
I
but
would
it does
say it's
happen,
unique.
and
I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that it's weird.
It's okay.
I would say it's not that it's not biblical, but in general, most of the time it's going to be more natural if the man leads in that way and the woman kind of just lets
I
him.
would say at some point the guy needs to step up.
Yeah.
And I
I
also think if you are the one that is like, if the girl's like proposing and saying I love you first and all that, sometimes it can scare the guy away because he's like, oh man, she's like already named our
Well,
kids.
that's like
and
embarrassing, kind of
Yeah.
a little bit.
I think it,
So,
yes, I think it can come
I
back
think-
to have
I think it
effects.
kind of depends on, like, it could work for certain people, but
Yeah.
it's not for me.
Like Yellowstone. I know that you and Travis watch Yellowstone.
I don't know if we should tell people that.
No, that's okay. So like in Yellowstone,
I don't recommend
I don't know if you watch the show, guard your heart, but I think it's an awesome
Check your
show,
heart.
and I mean, I don't know. Anyways, in the show,
mean,
a
you watched The
female
Bachelor.
actually asked the guy to marry
Yeah,
her.
And
There was a-
I mean, they also kill people. So
There is, but there was a very specific reason why she did it. Like basically, and I didn't necessarily agree with it, but the guy had so much respect for her dad that he would never dare ask to marry his daughter. Like he respected and revered the dad so much. He was like, and he had known the dad. The dad basically rescued him out of a pretty bad life, and so he owed so much to the dad. He like would have never had it in him to like want to like take his daughter. And so she went to the dad and said, "Are you okay with this?" And he was like, "Yes." And she was okay. Well, then I'm going to ask him because I know that he's never going to ask you. And like it kind of makes sense. If you watch the show, you kind of get it.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I
an
can see that.
extraordinary.
I
Right.
think,
and that's what I'm
Very
saying. I
Yeah,
think
it's a
that there, I
very
think that
specific
there are specific situations where that might happen.
Yeah.
But in general, I agree. But I was just trying to play devil's advocate.
I
Like if
mean-
we have listeners out there and you're like, well, I asked my boyfriend out and
Yeah.
now we've been dating for
And I
3
think
years.
that's
I'm
totally
like,
fine.
it's
That's
fine.
okay. Yeah,
Like
that's
it's not.
okay.
It's
Just at
not. It
some
doesn't
point-
As in
mean-
general, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
If someone was like, "Well, should I do this?" I would be like, "I don't think that you should ask them
Yeah.
out. I think you should let them." But maybe tell a friend and be like, "Oh, I'm really interested in so and so," and
So,
maybe
like-
let them drop the
Yeah.
ball in the guy's court, and then the guy can decide: Do I want to pursue this or not?
I mentioned my
Right.
dad being
Kind of
really
thing.
shy earlier. So my parents are high school sweethearts, and my mom knew that he was interested and she was interested, but he's so shy. She knew that he would never do anything. So she was like in her car and she like called him over and was like, "Hey, get in real quick. I want to tell you something." And he was like, "Okay." And he like got in the passenger seat and she drove off and they went on their first date.
Aw.
That is bold.
That is
Yeah,
bold.
it worked. I mean, they've been married for like 38
time.
years. I don't know.
How old are your parents?
60 almost. My dad's 59 the next month, and my mom will be 60 in
Thanks. My
January.
parents are older than your parents. I didn't realize that.
Yep.
But my mom also had me when she was 38. So
Oh, wow.
there's that.
That is, God bless her.
Yeah.
She had my sister when she
My
was
factory
35.
shuts down
and-
at 30,
Wow.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was when I was just random story when I was in high school and I dated a girl. My parents were older than her grandparents, so that was
Oh
interesting.
wow.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. And then like her parents were not way older than us, and so like it was really hard for me to like not see them as just like I don't know. They just weren't that. They were like
The cool
barely old enough to be her parents.
Yeah.
And so, like, it was just hard for me it was hard for me to look at them as like authoritative, if that makes sense. I don't, and I was still only like 19 or 18, but it
I
was
will say
weird.
my dad actually did ask the official question, like, "Will you be my girlfriend?" And he did officially ask her
Yeah.
to marry him. But
So-
she did make the first move. So
All that to say, I think we would all agree. In general, the guy should pursue the girl. However, if it starts off the other way around,
Yeah.
like just
That's
at
okay.
some point, yeah, it's okay. And at some point, though, the guy needs to kind of step up and be.
I
the
think
one to
that
really
I've seen a
pursue
lot
her.
of times, and I mean, this even happened to me one time. Like, I was pursuing the guy, and he was, not that into me. And I've seen a lot of girls do that same thing. And if the guy is not reciprocating, like, it's just going to fail.
well, in
So-
general, the men are going to be more likely to be attracted if they feel like you're kind of hard to get. And
Yeah,
if you're
for
like,
sure.
"I'm right here, I'm
Yeah.
available," sometimes it doesn't.
For sure.
They're not as interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do a few more questions on dating. I'm probably not going to go over all of these. But when you're in the dating phase, what should the girl be doing to invest spiritually in the relationship, if anything? And what should girls expect from guys spiritually when dating? Because obviously it is way different from when you're
Because
married.
he's not your spiritual leader
Yeah.
yet.
Right.
Yes.
And so
You're still your dad would be your spiritual
yeah, exactly. And so, and then of course, if you maybe your dad is not in your life, then
Right.
it's just Jesus.
Yeah.
But
Ultimately,
yeah.
yes.
And so, when you're dating, what should a girl expect from a guy spiritually, and then what should the girl kind of do or be investing spiritually? What do y'all think about that?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I think for sure that the girl spiritually needs to be focused on herself. Where are you with the Lord? How are you spending your time with the Lord? And then talking about it like this. Oh, you know what? I really loved the sermon. Did you hear it? Or, oh, I really liked the sermon. Or maybe I didn't understand this. Or maybe I disagreed with this. And just talking about where you are in your spiritual walk. Whereas the guy might need to ask more questions and be a little bit more like maybe initiate some of those conversations. But I would say that as your role as a girl would be to focus on what is your spiritual life like? How are you pursuing Jesus? And then is this guy helping you along that? Like, is he pointing you closer, or is he trying to pull you off of that?
Yeah, for sure.
So like if you're a girl and you're dating a guy and you feel like you're having to lead him spiritually,
You're like
Yeah.
pulling him, it's not going to
That's not gonna work.
Because
It's a weight that you're not meant to carry.
I would say girls should expect a guy to at least show signs of wanting to lead them spiritually. Not that he actually is yet, because he's not, your husband. But I think that a guy should show, at the least, he should show signs like, I can't wait to lead you spiritually when we're married, and then maybe trying to small things when they're dating, like, oh, what have you been reading in your Bible,
And
like,
I think even on that same note, like when me and my husband first got married, that role can be very intimidating for some men. Like for my husband, that was very intimidating for him to try to like spiritually lead. And we've had lots of discussions about this. Like we did a mom to mom.
It like
thing
tells
on it.
you in the Bible that the man's supposed to spiritually lead, but it doesn't say
Yeah,
like, and this is how he does it.
How do you do that? Yeah,
It's an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
Was that kind of hard? Do you think, was he intimidated by the fact that you were like pastor's daughter?
No, not really.
Because like, I'm
It's
sure he
just-
was aware that your whole life you had a pretty amazing spiritual leader in your house.
Yeah, not that so much. It was just more his family. They're very loving, very kind, but they never openly talk about things. And so, and then on my family, we're like we talk about everything, and when we sit down for lunch, like we're gonna talk about Jesus, and like that's just what we do. And his family, that's not what they did. And so, merging those two, and I had these expectations of him, and.
It's
That was
different.
it was, and so he has grown into that role, and it's really pretty and beautiful now. But for him at first, and so I would say to guys, like that is an intimidating thing, and just talk to your spouse, or if you're dating, talk to them and be a little bit more vulnerable. And I don't really know how to do this.
I think whenever
but
you have natural conversations, like you were saying, like we're eating lunch, and I'm going to tell you, like, oh my gosh, I had such a good time
talking
reading.
about it.
So when you naturally are talking about your faith and you're naturally talking about Jesus, it's going to be a more natural place for him to step in.
yes, for sure.
Well, and I think that starts with kind of the way we started this conversation is what does it mean to be a biblical woman? And then, of course, what does it mean to be a biblical man? And all of it comes down or boils down to seeking Jesus. So if you're dating and both of you are seeking Jesus, that should naturally come up in conversation.
It might take some
And it
Right,
like
yeah,
because
it could-
my husband, she
No,
keeps
you're
wanting to
fine.
talk,
Yeah,
and
that's
we're
fine.
like
You're
interrupting
Go
her.
for it.
Like he was seeking Jesus, but that was not in his nature to
Right.
talk about it, and so it took growing into that. But go ahead.
I think that it's not the guy's place yet, obviously, if you're not married, to lead spiritually. But I think as a boyfriend, you do need to lead spiritually with boundaries
Yes.
and
Oh,
respecting
for
those
sure.
boundaries. So, like, if you're a girlfriend and a boyfriend going, oh, well, we're dating, but, like, very clearly that you both need to be seeking the Lord with everything you have. And we should all be doing that for the rest of our lives. But I think for the guy and the girl, like, putting the boundaries in place and respecting those boundaries, and the guy leading in those boundaries, and the woman also like taking her part in the boundaries as well, is probably one of the best ways that you can lead each other spiritually in a dating relationship.
For sure.
That's good.
Yeah. So I want to get to. I want to talk a little bit about temptation when dating and how you fight that, because you mentioned setting boundaries, and I do agree. I think that that the guy should be, if you're a girl and you're dating a guy and he's not,
If he's trying to
effort.
if he's trying to push the boundaries or
Yeah.
knock them down, then he's not.
Or doesn't even want them.
Yeah.
Is the guy
That's
you're
the problem.
dating?
Yeah.
Does he clearly want boundaries, and does he fight
Yeah.
to keep them?
Yeah.
Because his job should be to guard your heart and to
Yeah.
point you to Jesus. Like his desire should be, I want to help her be more like Jesus, not.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and answer that question then. So when you were dating, and then especially engaged, because I will say, like, I heard over and over again, oh yeah, once you get engaged, the
It's
temptation's going to
difficult, yeah.
increase. And I was always like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's all the same. And it wasn't. When you
Short
get,
engagement.
That
y'all.
much closer to
Yeah.
marriage.
when you get engaged, obviously, like, and this is good to say, I guess, you only get engaged because you know that you're going to get married.
Right.
Dating is engagement is not the next step or phase. It's literally just in some ways, a formality to actually getting married, and it's
Yeah.
kind of what our culture does now. Like, you don't get engaged to see if you're going to get married. You get engaged because you're going
To
to.
plan your
Yes.
wedding. No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
it's the planning stage.
Well, not just your wedding, but your whole marriage.
Yeah.
Where
Like
are we gonna
like
live? What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
my wife and I were engaged for 8 months, and a big part of it was just like our leases for our apartments ended at that time. Otherwise, it probably would have been a lot quicker. But anyway, so temptation does increase when you're engaged, for one. But when you're dating and when you're engaged, what are some ways that y'all could maybe advise like girls on, like, how do you fight temptation? And again, obviously that you want to make sure you're with the guy who's in that fight with you. But what are some practical things that they can do to fight that? Because that's obviously a massive issue for.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, like you would talk about boundaries at the very beginning, set those up, and then they're going to be easier to follow because, you know, you're not fighting against, like, if you've already fallen, then you're fighting against, like, oh, like, this was already great, but now we got to come out of it. But a lot of the times that's not the case. So I would say some practical boundaries that I tell my college kids. I've even talked to my daughter. I mean, she's only about to be 11, but like we've already actually had all these conversations. Staying up really late with your boyfriend or girlfriend, it's just unwise. Like if you're hanging out till 1, 2, 3 in the morning, like on average, you're just tempting fate at that point. You're getting tired. You're more than likely possibly laying down. You're alone. It's dark. You're pretty much tempting fate at that point. So I would say, unless you're in a group of people, or occasionally, like y'all got to hang out and watch movies late, like you don't routinely need to be staying up, you know, past midnight all the time with each other. I think that, and laying down together, also you're just asking for it. You're just asking to test that boundary. It's going to be more difficult.
And I think so Travis and I dated for 4 years, which is a really long time to date. And so that's like, you know, there are natural temptations. If you're not attracted to them, that's probably a bad sign. Like after 4 years, if you're not tempted. But I think having those goals set up of knowing like, well, why is this boundary here in the first place? Like, why does God protect sex? Like, why does God put this here? And why do we want to honor him? And I think whenever you talk about that and you set that up, and then like the last 2 years we were together, we knew that every time that we were alone, that there was extra temptation. So we just tried to not be alone. It was like, okay, well, you're not going to, you're a lot less likely to have sex in the middle of Chili's, right? So like we didn't hang out at each other's rooms. Like we didn't do that. It was like, there's no reason for us to be sitting in a bed watching TV together. That's really bad choice. So like we would be out in public, you know. You're not going to fall as likely. You have these natural boundaries. We're not going to go look at the stars in our car in the middle of Brownwood, like where no one would see.
Nobody's going to look at the stars.
You're not looking at the stars. Like you just need to set those natural, like those things that you know. Okay, if I do this, my mind's going to go somewhere it shouldn't go. Because if your mind goes there, then your hands may go there. Then you're probably going to go there. And if your mind's there, you're already sinning.
When I was dating a girl, there was like a nice, truly a really nice park with like this pond, and it was surrounded by trees, and there was like a library.
Yeah, you weren't going to look at the nice pond.
I wasn't going to the library.
Don't call it something that it's not, and try to make it sound innocent.
Right.
And just, you know what? We knew, hey, if we want to honor God, we're going to be going to the movies. We're going to be going to Chili's. We're going to be hanging. If we're going to hang out in our apartment or whatever, we're going to have people. There's going to be a group, and I'm really glad that we were able to live that way, you know. And we still weren't perfect. My mind still went places it shouldn't go sometimes. But we were able to wait until marriage, and I think that was our goal.
Yeah.
I think on that same note, like kind of what you were saying. Don't just say, okay, well, we're not going to have sex before we get married. If you just say that and just because that's what we're supposed to do, you're going to fail. Yeah. But if you really know why.
And just saying, like, that's it. Like, okay, we're not going to have sex.
Yes.
Okay, well.
Yes. Well, yeah.
If your mind is lusting, you're sinning too. So, like, where are we going to set these boundaries?
Yeah. But if you know why, like, why does Christ say that? And, you know, you talk about that, then that's going to be a lot easier to keep those standards.
For sure. We'll do one more question on dating, and then we'll move into kind of what comes after dating and you get married and stuff. And I think this is kind of a random order to go in with this question, but we'll kind of finish talking about dating on this question. And I think it'll be easy for y'all to answer. How can a girl know that she's ready to date? When does a girl know, like, yeah, I'm ready. I should be dating right now. It's a good thing for me to date.
I would say until you're content in who you are in Christ, alone,
Yeah.
you're not ready to be dating. If you feel like you need someone else to complete you and you don't feel complete in Christ, you're not ready to date.
Yeah.
And I think also some people think, oh, well, I don't want to be like the old crazy cat lady that's single all her life. But like, you know what? That lady might be just as, like, she's probably very spiritually fulfilled. And so don't short change what Jesus is going to do. Like that is what you need. That is what your heart needs. And a man can't fulfill that. So unless you are completely content in Christ, you're not ready to date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Cool.
Same.
So I don't think there's like an age.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's really. I think
And
once
I
you're-
think also, I mean, I got married in college, so I don't think it's like a lot of people think, oh, well, you know, I have to finish my master's or I have to
Don't have the
and
right
it's like,
job.
yeah, I
and
have to
a
have
certain
money.
amount of
I have to.
I hear that from mostly
yeah.
boys, but like.
you
yeah,
do
but
not
they're
have
like,
to be wealthy to get married.
no,
Or
and
even financially comfortable. Like you can get married and be tight financially.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that
Yes.
and there's going to be different conflicts in your marriage no matter what, and some of them come with more money and some of them come with less money, but they're just different conflicts. That's not one. There's not less.
Yeah.
But that would be what I say.
Yeah. Cool. And
I agree.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's
we'll,
true.
we'll do one more that I think just
didn't-
this
we
is
didn't talk
actually the
enough.
last one. So when you're dating, and let's say you've been dating for I don't know, let's just say a year, and things have gone really well. A lot of the stuff that we've talked about is kind of checked off the list. When did y'all know that you were ready to marry your respective spouses? Like, how does a girl know? Like, yeah, I'm ready to marry this guy. What were some key things for y'all?
I knew really quickly.
too.
Like, I'd never really felt that with any other guy I was ever dating. And part of it was that my parents really liked him, and that was huge for me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there was like one specific thing. I think, like you said, all these things checked off, and like he pushed me and made me better, and just I feel like it was like a bunch of things that.
I think my age played into it a little bit. That Travis felt ready to get married way before I did, and a lot of we're 3 years apart, which isn't a lot whenever you're 30 and 33, but when you're 15 and 18, it's kind of different. And so I remember when I was 17 and he was 19 or 20, and he was talking about, like in the next year we could like talk about getting married,
like,
and I'm
well.
like, could I finish high school first? Like I think you're great.
Yeah.
And so for me, he definitely was there before I was, and it took me realizing, and I think a lot of that also was like culture saying like, oh no, you're too young to get married. But a lot of that was me like processing that in my age, and I wasn't even legally old enough to get married at 17. But just working through, this is what I want. Like this, I see Jesus in him, and knowing for sure. Like I remember one of my sisters, on our wedding day, she was in a really bad place in her marriage at the time, which none of us knew. And like I'm about to walk down the aisle, and she grabbed my hand and said, "You don't have to do this. It's not too late."
Oh wow.
And I was like, "No, like I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like you're crazy. I'm ready to go."
Yeah.
But you just do. You just
Yeah.
all of a sudden you feel like a peace.
You
Like
shouldn't
this
really
is
be
what God-
talking yourself in or out of it. I
No.
don't think
Yeah,
that
it's
there's
just a
this
peace.
like you're just sitting and waiting like,
Yeah.
this is the moment.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
You're either
Let's
ready
do
or
this.
you're
Like,
not.
I
Like,
think
there's a peace when it's
a natural
time.
progression, like you said,
Yeah.
and like all of a sudden you're just kind of like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
we are at that stage, and I can see myself doing that, and I can see myself building a life with you, and you kind of probably hope for things like future things, like having kids with that person and
Yeah.
holidays.
You're
and
like,
whatever.
oh, you would be
like,
so cute as a little
yeah,
baby.
and so I think it's a natural thing, and you kind of wake up and go, oh, like
Yeah.
like we're ready to do this.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, and so I think basically, and I would agree with you, y'all. Like there was just like a piece that I had about it. Like I told Tori 2 months into us dating that I was in love with her, and truly after the first date, I like told myself that I was going to marry her. And so I think if you're at a point in life where
Mine took a little longer.
yeah, but like I do.
We were a
think
little
that
older than you.
It took Tori longer. Like so, like
Yeah.
and that's okay.
it took
Yeah.
her actually.
Shout out.
Several,
I knew before.
Girls.
I was more so before Tucker was.
It took her several months longer, and I was totally okay with that. But I agree. I think when both of you, if you've been dating, you know the person as well as you can while you're dating. you like each other's families, you love each other, you can see a future with this person.
Yeah.
You're confident in their relationship with Christ and them and yours. You enjoy being around each other. You want to be around them all the time.
Better to marry young than burn with lust. That's what the Bible says.
Yeah, and
That's
so
true.
I
It's
think
true.
Well-
there's not basically don't when you like are confident in that,
Yeah.
and both of you are on the same page. There's
Yeah.
not a whole lot to
Hinder.
analyze or think about.
No. Well, and I think at the beginning of dating, like, I think we forget what dating is about. And
Yeah.
so, like, the world is deemed dating as, like, this fun
Fun,
thing that
yeah.
you do. Yeah, it's fun, and it passes the time, and I don't want to be alone. And, well, I want people to think I'm prettier, that I'm
Or, like,
valuable,
I'm
or that I'm
perfectly
worthy.
content dating right
yeah,
now.
so,
Yeah.
like, I want to have somebody else. Or, I mean, there's all of these reasons that people date. Like, if you ask people, like, why are you dating? Or when girls say, why do you want a boyfriend? Well, I'm just tired of being alone.
Yeah.
That's not a reason to date.
Yeah.
That's not why we're dating.
Right.
And so I think that, like, when you're dating someone, like, remembering, like, the whole purpose of dating is really marriage. Like, if you can't see yourself marrying that person,
Break
if you
up.
don't even want to look at
don't date 'em.
marriage,
Save yourself
if
that
you're
heartache.
not, like, there's no reason for you to be doing that in the first place. So, like, remember what dating is about. Like, dating isn't about fulfilling your emptiness or just being fun or making your friends jealous. Like, whatever reason that you have, it's literally so that you can get married someday.
If you've been dating for 2 months and you don't see yourself
Yeah.
marrying
Yeah,
that
you
person,
need to-
Yeah.
that's
need to
not
go.
gonna
Save yourself the heartache and
Yeah.
get
You
out.
need to go.
99.9% of the time, that's not going to change at month 6. Or
No,
9.
it's not.
It's
Like,
just not. Like
either you do or you don't. So.
especially if you are seeking the Lord, and that's kind of what
Yeah.
means you're ready to date. Like, I'm pursuing Jesus. I'm content in Him. My identity's in Him. And you're dating.
And don't feel, I think sometimes I talk to girls who don't want to break up with somebody because they feel guilty. But
Yeah.
but he's such a good guy and he loves Jesus and he does all these things on
That's
my
okay.
checklist. But
Yeah.
honestly,
Somebody
he
else
just
can
But
marry
he
he's
you.
just
not
like
for you.
he
Yeah,
just
he's just not
annoys
for
me.
you.
I'm like, break up with him.
Yeah, somebody
He's
else
not
can
for
marry
you.
him.
Somebody else
Yeah.
won't be annoyed by him, you
Yeah.
know? So
The rest
do
of your life is a
yourself a
long
favor,
time.
do him a favor, care enough about him to go ahead and just nix it earlier.
All right, well, that is the end of the first part of this episode. We talked a lot about dating and singleness and kind of what gets you to marriage. And on the part 2, we'll actually talk about marriage and parenthood and stuff like that. So make sure you tune in for part 2.